Imagine the very first human family on Earth. Just, 4 people total.
Right, literally the dawn of humanity.
Yeah, exactly. Now realize that 25% of that population murdered the other 25%.
It is such a dark way to frame it, but yeah, the math is totally accurate.
It really is. And today, we're asking a pretty terrifying question. Does violence actually start with a weapon, or does it start as this completely undetectable disease in the human heart?
It's a heavy question. And welcome to the deep dive, everyone.
Yes, welcome. Our mission today is to pull apart this single, just incredibly fascinating, transcribed address from July 23rd, 2026. It's a sermon by a speaker named Nick Williams, and it's called The Heart Behind the Murder.
And I have to say, it dives into some extraordinarily heavy psychological territory right out of the gate. It really challenges how we fundamentally view human nature.
It really does. And the source material, it actually kicks off with something impossible to ignore from that specific cultural moment. The relentless wall-to-wall media frenzy around the murder trial of political activist Charlie Kirk.
Right, which was just dominating everything at the time.
Absolutely dominating. And look, just to be crystal clear with you, our listener, our mission today is not to take a political side here.
Right.
Or, endorse any views surrounding Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, we're strictly here as your guides to report on the underlying philosophy presented in this specific text. We aren't touching the politics.
Exactly. Not analyzing the legal trial itself. None of that.
But the speaker's doing something really interesting with that cultural touchstone. When a high-profile tragedy happens, society usually obsesses over timelines, right? Motives, physical evidence.
Oh, for sure. We want the minute-by-minute breakdown.
Exactly. We want to draw a bright chalk line around the event because psychologically that gives us an illusion of control. We think if we can map the exact physical steps that led to the event, we can understand it.
And, keep it far away from us.
Yes. But this text, it completely ignores the chalk line. It uses the tragedy to zoom out and ask a much older, deeper question.
Which is, how does a human being actually get to the point where pulling a trigger feels like the only viable option left?
Right. How do you get there mentally?
Because to answer that, the source argues we have to essentially reverse engineer human violence, going all the way back to the earliest recorded examples, which brings us back to that dark math I mentioned earlier.
Genesis chapter 4.
Yep. The story of Cain and Abel.
The very first recorded murder in the biblical text. And, that statistic about 25% of the Earth's population wiping out the other 25%.
It's just wild to think about.
It really is. It shatters the modern myth that family dysfunction is some new phenomenon caused by modern stress. The text points out that violence has been baked into the human condition from the very beginning.
Okay, wait, I have to jump in here and just express a little skepticism.
Sure, go ahead.
Is the speaker seriously arguing that the root of all modern dysfunction, including complex, high-profile murder trials, traces back to, 2 brothers arguing in a dirt field?
When you put it like that...
Because isn't that a massive oversimplification? Ancient agrarian disputes feel pretty disconnected from modern crime.
Well, if you only look at the setting, sure. But look at the psychological mechanism the text is actually highlighting. The story isn't really about agriculture.
Right.
It's about the anatomy of envy. Cain brings an offering of fruit. Abel brings a firstborn lamb. Abel's offering is favored. Cain's is not. And the speaker emphasizes a really crucial point here.
Which is?
Murder didn't happen the moment Cain's offering was rejected. It wasn't just a spontaneous explosion.
Ah, okay. It started as an internal, invisible shift.
Exactly. A slow, deliberate erosion of his inner life. Cain looks at his brother and feels that initial pang of jealousy. And the text notes that God actually intervenes and warns Cain.
Oh, right. The whole predator thing.
Yes. He says, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Notice the visceral imagery there. It's not described as a passing bad mood.
It's a predator waiting in ambush.
Precise.
So if you're listening to this and you've ever felt that dark, creeping sense of bitterness, like when someone else gets the promotion you worked for or the praise you totally deserve.
Or the relationship you wanted.
Right. The text is saying that feeling is literally the predator at the door.
To put it in modern psychological terms, it's that neurochemical loop of resentment. And Cain doesn't shut the door. He lets the jealousy incubate.
He feeds it.
Yeah, it requires proximity and comparison to grow, and he feeds it. He lets it turn into envy, and that envy calcifies into a blinding rage.
So by the time he actually lures his brother out into the field, The physical violence is just the final visible symptom.
Exactly. It's the symptom of a disease that had already completely taken over his mind.
Wow. Which makes the second case study in the source even more unsettling, honestly.
Oh, the shift to David.
Yeah. The speaker jumps forward to King David and Bathsheba from 2 Samuel. Now, we're looking at a completely different environment here. I mean, Cain was a desperate, overlooked farmer.
And David was a king who literally had everything.
The ultimate power, wealth, status, you name it. Yet he orchestrates the battlefield death of one of his most loyal soldiers, Uriah.
It just proves that this internal rot doesn't only affect desperate people who feel they have nothing to lose.
Right.
It infects people at the absolute pinnacle of society who seemingly have everything. The triggers are different, but the disease mechanism is identical.
So for Cain, the trigger was jealousy over a rejected offering.
And for David, the initial trigger was lust, when he saw Bathsheba from his roof.
And then the lust, mutates into something much more calculated.
Into intense fear.
Mm.
Once Bathsheba becomes pregnant, David's pristine public image is threatened. The fear of exposure kicks in, followed closely by staggering pride.
He has to protect his reputation at all costs.
Right. So he leverages his immense power to have Uriah abandoned on the front lines to be killed by the enemy.
The terrifying part to me is that David didn't even hold the weapon.
Not at all.
He wrote a letter, let the enemy troops do the dirty work, and kept his own hands perfectly clean. It was essentially like a boardroom conspiracy.
Yet the blood was still entirely on his hands. Whether it's a farmer's envy or a CEO king's pride and fear of losing his status, the speaker is establishing a foundational baseline here.
Extreme acts of violence are never isolated incidents.
Never. They are the fully ripened fruit of a seed planted in the mind long before the act.
Okay, so if human nature has this deeply ingrained tendency to let dark thoughts fester into destructive actions, how did ancient societies deal with it?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right, how do you govern a population prone to this kind of internal disease? The text points to the Jewish law of Moses, 613 commandments.
A massive, comprehensive system designed to govern, daily life, agriculture, commerce, and worship. The historical goal was to build a society that reverenced God and protected the community from this exact kind of decay.
But humanity immediately found a way to overcomplicate it. And the speaker uses this fantastic analogy here that I absolutely love.
The swimming pool.
Yes. Imagine you build a beautiful swimming pool in your backyard. Naturally, to protect small kids or, a dog that isn't a great swimmer, you build a fence around the pool.
A perfectly rational, necessary boundary for safety.
Yeah, totally. Until you start overthinking it. You worry, what if someone leaves the gate open? So just to be completely safe, you step back 5 feet and build a second fence.
Makes sense on paper.
Right. But then you think, what if a teenager climbs that one? Better build a third, then a fourth. Eventually, you look out your window and your beautiful yard is just an ugly, unnavigable maze of chain link fences.
And what's fascinating here is that the religious leaders of the time, particularly the Pharisees, did exactly this with the law of Moses.
They built the chain link maze.
They really did. They wanted to protect the core commandments, which, wasn't an inherently bad impulse. Take the Sabbath, for example. God said to keep it holy and not work.
Right, simple enough.
But to ensure no one even came close to breaking that central rule, the religious leaders created dozens of highly specific sub-rules, like about exactly how many steps you could take in a day.
Or what specific household actions actually counted as work.
Exactly.
They built fences around the fence. It sounds exactly like when a massive tech corporation adds 50 pages of terms and conditions to a simple app update.
Oh, that is a brilliant modern equivalent.
Right, because it's not actually about helping you, the user, have a better experience anymore. It's just endless legal cover to protect the company. The rule becomes infinitely more important than the person it was supposed to protect.
The Pharisees turned rule-keeping into an absolute obsession. Psychologically, we have to look at why humans do this.
Because uncertainty is terrifying.
Exactly. We love building fences because if we have a strict mathematical list of rules, it gives us an illusion of total control. We can measure our own goodness.
And more importantly, we can measure how much better we are than the guy next to us.
That was the fatal flaw. The fences morphed into a massive status symbol. It bred this incredibly toxic culture of comparison. People began finding their entire identity in which fence they stood behind.
Oh, I can totally see that.
Someone might think, well, I don't have the discipline to be in the inner circle with the super Pharisees.
The elite fence keepers.
Right. But at least I'm safely behind fence number 3. I'm definitely morally superior to those people out on the concrete who don't follow any rules at all.
Wow. It turned morality into a hollow performance. I mean, you could be harboring all the pride, lust, and envy in the world inside your head. As long as you didn't cross the physical fence, you considered yourself righteous.
Which is why the speaker introduces this next metaphor, the school bus. He says the law was never meant to save anybody.
Okay, the school bus. Break that down for us.
So he says the law was designed to act as a mirror, exposing our flaws, or to function like a school bus. Think about the function of a bus. You put your child on it, but the bus isn't the final destination.
Right, you don't want them living on the bus.
Exactly. Its only job is to transport the student and drop them off at the feet of the teacher.
Ah, I see.
The source argues the law was just a transport vehicle. Its severe strictness was meant to show humanity that they could never achieve perfection on their own. It was supposed to expose their desperate need for grace and drop them at the feet of the Savior.
But the religious leaders got stuck worshiping the bus.
Stuck worshiping the bus. Exactly.
That is such a powerful image. Stuck worshiping the bus. So if outward rules, these endless layers of terms and conditions, only lead to arrogant self-righteousness without curing the internal disease, what's the alternative?
This brings us to a massive paradigm shift in the text.
Jesus' teachings in Matthew 5.
The Sermon on the Mount. This is where the entire system gets dismantled piece by piece.
The speaker sets this scene so vividly, too. Picture this hill in the ancient world. You have the scribes and Pharisees, the recognized academic elite who have dedicated their entire lives to studying these 613 laws and all the extra fences.
The ultimate rule keepers.
Right. And here comes Jesus. A humble carpenter, zero academic pedigree. And he just bypasses all their traditions. He doesn't quote other famous rabbis to build a consensus.
No, he just sits down and repeatedly says, "You have heard it said, but I tell you."
Which, I mean, that's pretty bold.
To the Jewish audience listening, that phrasing was a shockwave. He wasn't speaking as a commentator offering an opinion. He was speaking with the authority of the lawgiver himself.
Stripping away centuries of man-made fences to reveal the original, terrifying intent of the law.
Exactly.
But I have to stop and push back on what he actually reveals, though, because the standard he sets feels completely unreasonable. Almost impossible.
How so?
Well, he quotes the commandment, "You shall not murder." Everyone nods along. But then he says, if you are angry with your brother or sister, you are subject to judgment.
Right.
If you say raka, which the speaker explains means worthless or empty-headed in Aramaic, you are in danger of the fire of hell.
It's an intense escalation.
Okay, let's really unpack this. Is the speaker seriously suggesting that me getting furiously angry at someone who cuts me off in traffic or muttering that they are an idiot under my breath is morally identical to premeditated murder? Because, sorry, that sounds absurd.
It sounds totally absurd until you look at the mechanics of what Jesus is actually doing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to separate the legal consequence from the spiritual diagnosis.
Okay.
The text is not arguing that society should lock you up for a traffic tantrum the same way they would for a homicide. The societal consequences are obviously different.
Obvious.
But Jesus is diagnosing the disease.
So he's ignoring the fruit and examining the root.
He is ripping past the physical hands and going straight for the heart.
Mm.
Think about it. When you cut someone off in traffic and they scream at you, or when you call someone worthless, what are you actually doing in your brain?
I guess I'm writing them off.
You are entirely devaluing their humanity. You are reducing a complex human life to an obstacle or an object of contempt.
Wow.
And that contempt is the exact same seed that grew into Cain's murder.
Man. So if you're listening to this right now, you're probably doing exactly what I did when I first read it. You're thinking, well, I'm safe. I've never killed anyone. I'm a good person.
The natural defense mechanism.
Right. But the text is telling you that if you've ever completely devalued a coworker in your mind or, canceled someone's humanity because of their political views, you are carrying the exact same disease.
The Pharisees thought they were pure because their hands were clean.
Right.
Jesus holds up a mirror and shows them their hearts are rotting.
Which is just an incredibly bitter pill to swallow. We all want to be the hero in our own story, right?
Always.
And to prove how easily we trick ourselves into nurturing this disease, the speaker, who is actually a pastor himself, shares this deeply uncomfortable but highly relatable story about going to the barbershop.
Oh, this story. It perfectly illustrates how we justify our own contempt on a daily basis.
It really does. So right before he leaves for his haircut, he's scrolling on his phone and watches a video that is just objectively vile.
Something deeply unjust and infuriating.
Yeah. He gets in his car, and he is just vibrating with anger. And he feels this anger is entirely righteous. Every red light he hits, every slow driver in front of him just adds fuel to this furnace.
We've all been there.
Oh, totally. He arrives at the barber shop, and his only goal is to sit in that chair and marinate in his own wrath.
But he gets a chatty barber.
Right? The barber is just talking about everyday, mundane life, not the news, not politics, just the weather and local stuff. And because he's a polite guy, the pastor has to engage.
You can't just ignore the guy with the scissors.
Exactly. So slowly, reluctantly, his anger starts to deflate. But here is the fascinating part. As his brain starts to cool down, he enters this intense internal bargaining session with Scripture.
He does. He recalls two specific verses, Romans 12:19, where God says, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay."
Okay.
And James 1:20, "The anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God." But look at the psychological gymnastics he performs in that barber chair.
So honest.
It really is. He admits he started arguing with God in his head, saying, "Yes, I know vengeance is yours, but this video is different. This is true evil. My anger is the exception. It is completely justified right now."
We have all been in that exact same mental negotiation, where we think, sure, generally I shouldn't be consumed with rage, but this specific politician or this specific ex-partner or this specific event is so uniquely bad that I get a free pass.
We desperately want to believe we are the exception to the rule.
Always.
And we have to look at why that happens. Neurologically, feeling self-righteous actually releases dopamine.
Really?
Yeah. When we feel justified in our anger, it feels incredibly good. It makes us feel powerful, morally superior, and in control.
That makes so much sense.
But the speaker contrasts this addictive feeling with a massive cultural lie we are constantly fed today. Modern society preaches the mantra, follow your heart.
Right. Trust your feelings.
We are conditioned to believe that our intense feelings are a noble, flawless compass. If you feel furious about an injustice, that fury must be a sign of your own innate goodness.
But the ancient texts say the exact opposite.
The speaker points to the prophet Jeremiah, who diagnosed the human condition by writing, "The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it?"
Desperately sick.
Our hearts do not naturally lead us toward justice or true righteousness. They lead us to rationalize our worst impulses. Left unchecked, our minds will always justify our hatred, finding a way to make it look like a virtue.
We essentially build an intellectual fence around our anger to protect it.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. Yes. And the profound takeaway the speaker leaves us with is this: hatred is never evidence that you are on the right path.
Never.
Even if you are absolutely convinced your anger is a righteous response to evil, the hatred itself is a symptom of the disease. Hatred doesn't make you more like the ultimate standard of goodness. It proves you are actively running away from it.
That is a staggering realization. I mean, it completely blows up the idea that we can just try a little harder to be good people.
It shatters the illusion of self-improvement.
Right. If our hearts are naturally deceitful dopamine junkies, and if building more fences and rules just makes us arrogant, and if we can't even trust our own quote-unquote righteous anger to guide us, wait, I mean, what is the fix?
How do we actually change the root?
Exactly. How do you fix a fundamentally broken system?
The speaker concludes the argument by pulling in one final piece of ancient wisdom, Ezekiel 36:26, and the solution it offers is radical.
Radical how?
Well, it is not about behavior modification. You cannot cure a diseased apple tree by just taping fresh apples onto its dead branches.
Oh, wow. You need an entirely new
You
tree.
need a transplant. The promise in Ezekiel is God saying, "I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh."
A completely new heart.
Right. The ultimate conclusion of the text is that the cure for this deep-seated disease, the envy, the pride, the justified hatred, it requires a supernatural intervention. It means giving up the exhausting project of trying to manage your own fences and instead receiving a completely new heart, one that is actually capable of genuine love and empathy.
It flips everything we think we know about morality. I mean, it's not about how perfectly you can maintain your outward behavior. It's about being honest about the hidden, diseased condition of your inner life.
It demands that we stop obsessing over the chalk lines of other people's actions and start examining the silent motivations we hide in the dark.
Which is exactly why we do these explorations with you. We don't just want to summarize a text for you, you know? We want to leave you with something to wrestle with long after this audio stops.
Absolutely.
So think about this. We live in a modern world driven by social media algorithms that literally profit from our outrage.
Oh, for sure.
We carry devices in our pockets designed to feed us infuriating videos and encourage us to indulge in the dopamine hit of justified anger every single day.
It's an ecosystem built entirely on fostering contempt.
Exactly. So ask yourself, how often are you willingly feeding the very heart of stone that ancient wisdom warns us about?
That's a heavy question.
Are you spending all your energy building impenetrable digital fences to prove you're on the right side of history while completely ignoring the rot taking root underneath?
That is a question that requires some deep, uncomfortable reflection.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it challenged your assumptions and gave you a new lens to look at both an ancient text and your own daily life.
It's been a privilege to unpack this with you all. Keep questioning your own assumptions, keep digging into the why, and take care.